Hey everybody, thank you for joining me on 365 Movies in 365 Days, and I am your host, Jose. How's everybody doing today? I hope wherever you're at, you are doing great. So, here we have our movie of the day. So, today's movie is Altered States. Now, I just got done watching this movie maybe about an hour ago. A lot of my emotions and reactions are pretty fresh, and so I'm still kind of going through it in my head as to what the hell I just experienced, but I wanted to kind of give a fresh kind of raw take on everything that I just went through because I was not expecting any of this. And in fact, if I knew what I got myself into, I would have done this a long time ago. I actually had got this movie maybe about a year and a half ago, and I kept putting it off. And then this morning I saw it and I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and watch this. So I put it in. I was starting to have my breakfast and everything. Man, I don't know if any of you have ever seen this movie or not, but if you haven't, you're definitely going to want to check this out. So let me go over a little bit about what Altered States is. Altered States is a science fiction horror movie. It was released on December 25th of 1980, and it was directed by Ken Russell. Now, Ken Russell has been one of those visionary directors. He's not as well known in the U.S. And has kind of been forgotten since Altered States was really his last big hurrah kind of movie. I think he made a couple minor, good movies after this, but he's really been forgotten. And the fact that, it's so far in the past, that unfortunately he doesn't get the love as a lot of other great 60s and 70s directors, get these days. So I sat down, I started watching it, I started, looking at it, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of a pleasant little, trip head, and the more I got into it, the more that I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I stopped it at one point and I thought to myself, if there was ever a movie that is like a advertisement for doing drugs, this is it. Like, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in I want to experience that. I want to know what that feels like. It was completely insane to think that, but that's what I thought. I'm like, this man is getting in touch with a side of spiritual awakening that I don't think happens that often anymore. And doesn't really get portrayed in movies. And that's what was happening. And I was like, I want a part of that. And so it was weird to be feeling that from a movie. Now, the movie stars William Hurt. And this is actually William Hurt's first movie. Can you believe that? And just to kind of go in that direction, this is actually, in a small part, Drew Barrymore is in this movie. This was her first role too. So let me give you a little breakdown on the story, okay? So we have Edward, and that's William Hurt's character. Edward is a psychopathologist who's studying the effects of sensory deprivation. Being locked up in a tank or a closed space with no sound, no vision, no nothing. So you're just in the void. And he's using a flotation tank, which is a weird machine or experience if you've ever done this. You can do this yourself too, by the way. I've done this in a bathtub where you turn off all the lights, you put towels or whatever down by the door so no lights, goes in, and you just sit in your tank. No noise, no nothing. You can't see anything. You can't hear anything. It's a great, peaceful experience, okay? And I don't recommend you try it, but if you ever want to kind of get as close to it, that's one way to go about it. So I've done that, So anyways, back to our story. So we have Edward, he's doing all these studies, and the experimentations are part of trying to understand some mental illnesses. We then get to a faculty party where he meets another, researcher named Emily, and the two hit it off like bang, right away. And 2 months later, she's practically dragging him into getting married. And you can tell that he isn't the marrying kind. He's like, yeah, I like you, and yeah, you're cool and all, but marriage, that ain't my bag. So we fast forward 7 years. 7 years have passed. Edward and Emily have 2 daughters, and they are on the brink of divorce. Not because he doesn't love her, but because he doesn't like the confinements, the trappings that come with being some professor and being, in a marriage. And that happens. It happens to a lot of people. Well, it's happening to Edward. He doesn't like this. just as their lives are about falling apart, they end up going on separate kind of trips. Emily goes to Africa and Edward goes to Mexico because he's heard that there's a tribe that is experimenting with shared illusion states, where you all have the same kind of trip, basically. And so he travels to Mexico to take part in this ceremony. The tribe allows him to take part in it, and after ingesting a mixture that includes some of his own blood that's prepared by the tribe, he experiences a bizarre, intense vision in which he isn't sure that's real or not. Well, he decides he wants to return to the U.S. with a small sample of the mixture to experiment with. This is really where our story is starting to really pick up pace. This is that moment where I was just like, man, why haven't I done this before? And I know that sounds weird to admit to a bunch of people, but that's what I felt like. I was watching this and I was thinking, oh man, that must have been amazing. It must have been amazing to get closeness with whatever you think God is, and that's like the what I've always read about people is that that's one of those feelings that you get when you're going on a trip like that, is that it is like your spirit's leaving your body. It's another realm that, we can't normally get to. Anyways, back to the story. So the mixture has some toxic substances that keep him from experimenting at higher dosages. So he starts to spend time in the water tank to enhance the effects of the mixture. During one experiment, he starts having drastic visions where he sees himself as an early ape. And when he's taken out of the tank with a bloody mouth, he's given x-rays, and when the radiologist inspects those x-rays, he says these belong to a gorilla, not a man. Crazy ass shit, okay? In later experiments, Edward experiences actual physical, biological de-evolution. Like, he's not evolving, he's going backwards. And at one point, he emerges from the tank as a light-skinned caveman going on a rampage before returning to normal form. With everybody worried about Edward, he continues to do the experiments on himself, because that's what a good scientist does, right? The hell with, the risks of turning into a caveman. Progress is only found through experimentations. No, not really. But that's the drive. That's that crazy scientist type mentality, right? That it's the only way to go forward is by pushing on forward. We get to the final experiment. In his final experiment, he actually transforms into this matter of mass, which releases a strong energy field that destroys the tank. Emily arrives at the last moment to try to, rescue him. She goes into this vortex in which, Edward is kind of on the brink of becoming this non-physical form and disappearing from reality altogether. It's really hard to explain to you the visuals, to try to get you through in words exactly what I was looking at on the screen. You really have to experience for yourself, because it's really hard to say, well, he turns into this blob of a matter type thing. No, the effects in this movie are great. And it's one of those things that's really hard to put into words. So he's taken home after his transformation, hoping that the transformations will end and he will not regress anymore. However, he's gone so far past the point of return that he doesn't even need the mixture or the tank to get these, psychotic, visions going. And at one point, Emily grabs him by his hand and she begins to be taken over by this energy field that's emerging from Edward. Seeing his wife being consumed by the energy kind of snaps something in him as a human, and he starts to fight the transformation, and he returns to his normal state, and so does she. The movie ends. Now, that ending is not the best. It just kind of is like, well, what happens next? I want to know what happens next. I want to know what, but we don't get that, unfortunately. So here's my take on Altered States. I really enjoyed this movie. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting. And I wasn't really necessarily thinking anything negative about this movie. I had heard positive things about it. I've heard, oh, it's a trip, but I hadn't really heard a whole lot beyond that. And I really enjoyed it. I would definitely watch this again. And I would really definitely recommend it for other people to watch it. If you've never seen this movie, check it out. But I will tell you, it's not one of those movies that puts all the pieces together for you. So if you're somebody who doesn't like movies that are very ambiguous at the end and don't really spell things out for you, then you're not going to like this at much. It really makes you think, and it really kind of tells you, okay, here's the story, make of it what you will. I personally love things like that. It really, gets that creative juices flowing for me. So I really enjoyed it. So that's really all I have for Altered States today. Thank you so much for joining me on our movie of the day. Just remember, I'm going to be doing a movie of the day 5 days a week from now on, Monday through Friday, and then a longer piece on the weekends for your entertainment. If you have a recommendation of a movie you think I should watch and review, let me know. You can visit us on the web, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can find this lovely podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you get your podcast at. Don't forget to rate us, review us, and give us a thumbs up when you can. I hope you have a great day and take care of yourself. And until next time, thank you.